Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to another edition of Movie Goodness, or should I say, the Easter edition of Movie Goodness, here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Easter, in case you didn't know. And what's the right greeting for Easter? Is it just Happy Easter? I guess it's just Happy Easter. I don't know any other things. But anyways, yes, Happy Easter. Hope everybody enjoys their Easter weekend or their Holy Weekend, or have enjoyed their Holy Week, as it's also described, starting with Palm Sunday, which was last Sunday, going throughout the week to Good Friday on to Easter Sunday. And I don't know all the days, what they're all meant to signify. I know Easter. That I do know. But for all of you, Happy Easter. Yes, this is the Easter edition of Movie Goodness. And we're gonna break down some things about Easter. Some questions you may have about Easter. Because I've had them. Especially when I was younger. When I got old enough to actually do research, those questions were answered. So I'm hoping that I can help some people out. And one of the big things was, what's the real meaning of Christmas, of Easter, and what's the purpose of the Easter eggs and the rabbit, and why did that get associated with the resurrection of Christ? Well, that's a good question, and I hope I can kind of answer it today. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense, but yet and still, that's the reason that I found why they do what they do, and whatever. But first, before we get into all that, then we're gonna have a movie after, a movie review that signifies Easter in a way. Is not anything. It isn't Passion of the Christ. Let's just say that. I thought about doing Passion of the Christ, but it's depressing, and so I didn't want to do a depressing show and cry, because every time I watch that movie, I cry. So I decided to do something that is associated with Easter. If you live in the United States, it's probably worldwide, but I know, look, I only live in the U.S., so I can only go by what I see here. So we're going to review a classic, and I mean classic of every sense of the word, the 1956 Cecil B. DeMille film, The Ten Commandments, and we're gonna break that down. But first, I wanted to talk about Easter egg hunts. You remember Easter egg hunts back in the day when you was little baby children, and you used to go around, whether it's in a field or it was around, after church or at school, and you used to go on these Easter egg hunts. I asked this because do they still do Easter egg hunts? They used to be a big thing. When I was a kid, going on Easter egg hunts to find the colored eggs and, the dyed eggs. When I say colored eggs, I don't know why that sounded so offensive. It sounded so offensive when I said that. That's the society we live in now. But anyways, the dyed eggs, trying to find the eggs, and I guess it was fun. Not so much for me. I remember a time when it could have been at school or at church. I think it was at school, because I don't think they would have did this at church. We had Easter egg hunts at church, but it wasn't traumatizing as it was when this particular incident. So I know it had to be at school. So we had an Easter egg hunt, right? And it was a contest. They got to make everything a competition. So who can gather the most eggs? And so the class, they ready, set, go, whatever, and went out to find the Easter eggs. I'm a strategist. I like to strategize. I don't just like to fly off the seat of my pants, even though I've done that on several occasions for certain situations. But for the most part, I like to strategize. At the time, I didn't know what strategizing was. It was just something I did and something I still do now. At the time, I did not know you couldn't strategize in the Easter egg hunt, especially when there's a competition on who can gather the most eggs. Well, I found out the hard way. While all the other kids was running around like chickens in a chicken coop, just going crazy, finding these eggs, I was sitting there trying to analyze where the eggs would be. Instead of running around looking like a fool, because I thought everybody looked like a fool, I just wanted to walk up, grab the egg, and go about my business. And that didn't work because all the kids, they were just running around grabbing eggs. Needless to say, I didn't get the most eggs. Matter of fact, I got the least amount of eggs in the class. To whereas my teacher felt the need to acknowledge the fact that Kevin Reed only gathered whatever amount of eggs it was. I'm just going to say 3 because that sounds right. And so it probably was about 3 eggs that I got as compared to the other kids that were getting 15 and 20 eggs and all this other foolishness. So I looked like a fool. That'll just open the door for more bullying and criticizing and all this here. As if I wasn't getting enough for being a short black kid in a predominantly white school who wore Coke bottle glasses. So yeah, I had such a beautiful childhood. Anyways, despite all that, with my kids, when my kids were little, I don't recall going on Easter egg hunts with them. I don't think that was a big thing. And now, I really don't see it. I don't see it advertised. Now, granted, I'm out of the loop because my kids are grown. Well, they're not grown, but my kids are older now, and I'm not. I'm not into got my ear to the streets, knowing where all these events take place. Because they used to have events, they used to announce it on the radio and maybe have a commercial on TV and talking about how they're going to have an Easter egg hunt at City Park or Easter egg hunt at this playground and, bring your kids and all this here, but I don't hear or see that nowhere these days. Once again, it could be me. It could be because I'm out of the loop, but I don't see it. So I just remembered the times that I did enjoy Easter egg hunts. They were enjoyable. They really were. I really did like them. It was just the hunt of it all because me being a Indiana Jones fanatic, I always looked at it as an Indiana Jones thing, hunting for the Holy Grail or, the Ark of the Covenant or something Indiana Jones would do. That's the way I pictured myself searching for this artifact, which was a dyed egg. So, it was fun for me, except for that one time at school where it was made to be Pick on Kevin Day. But whatever the case may be, that also led me to this. That led me to this question of what's the meaning of Easter. Now, I grew up in a church-going family. Church-going means I went every Sunday. I went to Sunday school, went to Bible class on Tuesdays. I went to youth Bible class on Saturdays. Went to choir rehearsal and usher board meetings on Saturdays. I went to revivals that were Monday to you had church on Sunday, then you had revival Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I went through all those. It was never any time off, and God forbid we had a second service or it's another service. We went to church whenever that door of the church swung open. We were there. There was no. Oh, I don't feel like going this Sunday or whatever. No. We went to church, and I definitely went to Sunday school. And Sunday school, of course, taught on this, about the life of Jesus Christ and about all that he did. And it especially touched on, around this time of the year, his death and resurrection. And so that's where initially what Easter it was about. But it turned into something that I don't understand how it gets associated with with Easter, but we'll get to that in a little while. But Easter, or is also referred to as Resurrection Sunday, is a Christian festival and cultural holiday commemorating the resurrection of Christ from the dead. Described in the New Testament as having occurred on the third day of his burial following his crucifixion by the Romans on Calvary in the year 30 AD. It is the commemoration of the Passion of Jesus preceded by Lent, or the Great Lent, a 40-day period of fasting, praying, and penance. And I know a lot of my Catholic brothers and sisters and friends and foes have just went through that. I'm not Catholic, so I don't do the Lent thing, but I commend them for doing that. The fasting and the praying and the penance do year round. So just doing it for the 40 days is not how I do it, but. Hey, I'm not knocking you for what you do, but that's the meaning of Easter. Easter is, to commemorate Christ's resurrection from the grave, and I often wondered, why is a bunny rabbit and dyed eggs associated with Easter? What does that have to do with Christ rising from the grave? I never. It used to drive me crazy as a kid. I mean, just like why? And I never got a definitive answer. I got something around the ballpark of what I found out later, but never anything definitive. To whereas I could sleep soundly at night knowing, oh, that's why. Well, this is what I've grown to find out, or come to realize what's the meaning behind the eggs. Let's start with the eggs. The egg is an ancient symbol of new life and rebirth. In Christianity, it becomes associated with Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. The custom of the Easter egg originated in the early Christian community of Macedonia, who stained the eggs red in memory of the blood that Christ shed at the cross, at his crucifixion. So, as such, for Christians, the Easter egg is a symbol of the empty tomb. The oldest tradition is to use dyed chicken eggs. So it's just as simple as that. And once I found that out, it kind of made sense. Okay, it's supposed to signify the empty tomb, which I say it makes sense. It still doesn't make sense with the empty tomb thing. I get it with the dye. I get it if you dye the eggs red, what it signifies. That makes perfect sense. But but I don't get the empty tomb thing. That I need that further explained to me. But that's the explanation that I found about what the meaning of the Easter eggs and Easter and Christ's resurrection has to, boom, connect. Dyeing it red, dyeing the eggs red. Now all the other colors of the rainbow and putting the bedazzles on them and and all that other stuff. I don't know where that come from, but the red, fully understand. I guess the red, I guess in the going back to the Easter egg hunts, it wouldn't be much of a hunt if you dye them all red. That would be a pretty easy Easter egg hunt. But in any event, cool. There you have that. Now the bunny. Now the rabbit, which you still can't. I cannot get where that comes from. Well, I get it because I'm about to tell you what it is. But as far as it linking with the true meaning of Easter, none. There's no connection whatsoever. In some traditions, the children put out an empty basket for the Easter bunny to come and fill it while they're asleep. They wait to find a basket full of candy, eggs, and other treats. So it's kind of like I guess you could say the Tooth Fairy type thing, or you can go Santa Claus for Christmas. But it really reminded me of the Tooth Fairy. And let me tell you a quick story about the Tooth Fairy. And if you're listening now with small children, cover their ears for about 5 minutes because I'm about to talk about the Tooth Fairy. So if you're listening, with either ask your kids to leave for a minute or stick your fingers in their ears. So look, listen. I was younger. I was younger, very, very young. And I lost a tooth. And this is crazy. I remember this. I lost a tooth. I didn't tell my folks that I lost my tooth. But I knew I had to put my tooth under the pillow. And so that night, without telling my parents, I put my tooth under the pillow because I knew the Tooth Fairy was going to come and give me some money, going to break me off, And I'm happy, It took me a while to go to sleep because I'm bucked up because I'm about to get me some money. So I finally go to sleep. I wake up the next morning, look under the pillow, tooth still there, and no money. And I'm like, what happened? What happened? So I immediately start crying. I'm upset. I'm mad. I don't understand what's going on. I go tell my mom, and I'm crying. Well, before I tell her, I just walk. I'm go up to her. I'm crying. I'm upset, and she's like, "What's wrong? What's the problem?" And I'm like, "Well, I lost my tooth. First, I had to hear it because I lost my tooth and I didn't tell her. So I had to get that. I got that. So once we got past that for about 20 minutes." I finally told her, look, I put the tooth, besides all that, I put the tooth under my pillow last night, and the Tooth Fairy didn't come. The Tooth Fairy don't care about me, blah, 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 moping. And so my mom, God bless her, I love that woman to death. I love her. I don't quite remember the look. It's been about 35, 40 years. So I don't remember the look, but I do remember her giving me a look like, my God, what did I give birth to? What is this boy's an idiot. So she tells me, like, look, it's all right. She probably was busy. there's a lot of children who lost their tooth yesterday. She just didn't get around to you. So tonight, put the tooth back under your pillow. She'll probably come back around. So that night, I listened to my mother. Put the tooth back under the pillow. Went to sleep. Woke up the next morning, and the tooth fairy came. She was right. Love you, Mom. But that just reminds me. I said all that to say that reminds me this Easter Bunny tradition. I didn't know about that when I was young. I didn't know that was a tradition. At least it wasn't in my house. Setting the basket out, and you wake up the next morning with all the goodies. We didn't get that. We got Easter baskets, but we didn't set it out with some milk and cookies for the Easter Bunny, or some milk and carrots for the Easter Bunny. And we didn't do that. I thought that was fascinating to me. The custom originated in Germany, believe it or not. The Easter Bunny is a popular Easter gift-giving character, in the same vein as I said before, Santa Claus is here in the United States. So many children around the world follow the tradition of coloring hard-boiled eggs and giving baskets for candy. Historically, foxes, cranes, storks, and other animals are sometimes named as mystical creatures associated with Easter. But there's one place I'm gonna say one, but I know one for certain. In Australia, since the rabbit is considered a pest in Australia, the Easter bilby is available as an alternative. So it's more of a they don't care for rabbits in Australia. So they don't use the rabbit as their symbol of Easter. They use another animal. But yeah, that's how the Easter Bunny came to be. I don't know why. Well, I guess I asked the same question about Santa Claus concerning Christmas. That's supposed to signify the birth of Christ. And how a fat white man in a red suit coming down a chimney have anything to do with the birth of Christ, I don't know. But that's the tradition. And here we are with it. Even though I rolled with that too. But actually, I didn't. Once again, if you're listening with small children, be warned. We never had that. That was never in question. I think I questioned it once. When I was maybe 3 or 4, maybe. Because we didn't have a chimney. I'm like, well, how is he gonna bring the gifts? And the response I gave, he's not. Me and your dad's gonna bring the gift. That was it for me. I ain't had no other. There was no other questions about old Saint Nick. So that was that. I wasn't blessed with that illusion. But yeah, that's Easter in a nutshell, and how all these other knickknacks and paddywhacks are associated with it. And it's interesting, but at the end of the day, me as a Christian, I look at that day as the day Christ rose from the grave. So there you have it. that's how I celebrate Easter. Now, as I stated, other countries, other parts of the world celebrate it differently, and I respect it. I respect that. But that's just me. That's just me. So I want to tell y'all a story before we get into our review. I want to tell y'all a story, if you're willing to bear with me. Of course you are, because you clicked in on this episode, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Let me tell you a story, and it's going to lead into the review. years ago, and I mean many moons. I say maybe I was 12, possibly 13, 14, around that age. We all know, even to this day, the Ten Commandments comes on every year for Easter. Now, the Ten Commandments has nothing to do with Easter. It has nothing to do with Jesus. It has nothing to do with Christ. It has nothing to do with his crucifixion or his resurrection. But it is, quote unquote, a biblical story. And so they play this every year on ABC, I believe. ABC airs it. Probably start around 5 o'clock Central Time, or 6 o'clock Central Time, and it probably don't go off until 11 because the movie is almost 4 hours long itself. But of course, it airing on television, you have to incorporate commercials, and so that stretches the movie out for a good 5 hours. So that's a 5-hour sitting for a film. Now, growing up, it wasn't a problem. I don't remember it ever being a problem sitting down watching the Ten Commandments from beginning to end. But there was this one time when I was, like I said, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. I can't remember exactly. Our family were blessed. We were blessed enough to purchase a VCR. And to our younger listeners, that is a video cassette recorder. It was the predecessor before TiVo or DVR. Before you had the luxury of just hitting the button on your remote to record a television show or whatever, you had a VCR. And if you was really lucky, you had the VCR where you can set the time to record. And so you didn't have to be home to record it, but you had to have the TV on the channel you was recording. And so, it was work back then, youngsters. It was work to have the simple things in life that we all take for granted today. But anyway, we got a VCR, and I thought we was on top of the world then, boy. You know what I mean? We can record stuff. We can go rent movies. We didn't too much buy movies, but we did rent movies. We rented a lot of movies, you know. Some I probably shouldn't have been watching, but I watched them anyway, with the luxury of the VCR. Anyways, it was one particular Easter when the Ten Commandments was being aired on ABC. My parents weren't going to be home. I'm going to say they were going to church because they didn't go nowhere else. And so they had to be going to church. And I was paroled that particular Sunday. I didn't have to go to church, which was a shocker. I'm like, oh man, how did I earn this privilege? Well, here's how I earned it. I had to stay home and record the Ten Commandments. Well, easy peasy, right? Just put the TV on ABC. When the movie starts, hit record and go about your business, right? Wrong. My mother, God bless her, because she wanted me to record the Ten Commandments, but she wanted me to edit out the commercials, which meant that I had to sit there throughout the whole duration, from beginning to end, and edit out the commercials. Now, once again, young folks, now us of a seasoned age know how you edited commercials through the VCR. Those of you of a certain age probably don't know how to do it. Well, it's fairly simple, people. You start recording the show or movie. Once the commercials come on, you press stop. Once the commercials end, it goes back to the movie. You press record again. Yes. Yes. So that's how I had to spend that Sunday evening watching the Ten Commandments. Now, I've seen the Ten Commandments up to this point. I've seen it multiple times. Loved it. Still do. But for this particular viewing, I learned everything I needed to learn about the Ten Commandments. At least the movie. I learned everything, including the commercials, because I had to pay attention to that too. Because if I wasn't paying attention to the commercials, had I stopped recording the commercials and the movie came back on, I wouldn't have recorded some of the movie. So I had to pay attention to when the commercials stopped. Now, you may ask yourself, Kevin, how did you use the bathroom? I had to cheat. This is how I did it. Started recording. I waited too long. That was my bad. I waited too long. And I went to use the bathroom. I came back from the bathroom. Walked in and the commercials were playing. And I'm still recording. So I had to hurry up, stop, rewind to where the commercials started. Now, while doing this, the only way I could do this, I had to switch over the output thing. I forgot how you did it. But you had to switch it over, which means I didn't know what was going on the television, on the actual live television. And so I had to hurry up, rewind it, watch it to the point where the commercials were, stop it there. So when I stopped it there, I had to hurry up, switch it back over to the live TV, and pray that the movie hadn't started. And so as soon as the movie, I think as soon as I switched it over, the movie started like 5-6 seconds right after that. I was cutting it close. And so I averted disaster there. And so, long story short story long, I end up watching, recording, and editing this 5 hour, maybe even 6. I don't even know how long. I lost track of time. Midway through, I had to sit there the whole time. And you would think by the time my folks got back home that I would be relieved of my duty and they can, my mom could take over from there. Nope. Nope. I had to finish it. I had to finish it to the end. I had to finish it to the end. I'll never forget that experience in my life. I mean, that was the one time that I actually sat down and analyzed a film. That was probably the first time I actually analyzed a movie because I had no other option. I was sitting there all that time. Man, it was brutal. Once again, love you, Mom. It was brutal. Only to come back around maybe 10 years later, and they end up buying it. Buying it on not DVR, on DVD. They end up buying it on DVD because we end up getting a DVD player. I'll say about 10 years later. And to be honest with you, I don't think she ever watched that video. I don't think she watched it. She just wanted to have it. And I think if she watched it, it would shock me. But I don't recall her ever watching it. But hey, it is what it is. I did my part. I did what I was told to do. No matter how cruel and unusual I felt it was. But it really wasn't that cruel and unusual because it was an excellent film. And that is a good segue into our review of the 1956 biblical epic classic, The Ten Commandments. Like I said, I had choices. I had options today to what film to review. And I felt this was the better film to review. Now, I'm not going to say it was the better movie or whatever, but it was the better choice because this has been deeply associated with Easter since 1973 when ABC decided to air this movie every either Passover or Easter weekend in its entirety with commercials. The Ten Commandments is a classic. No matter what your belief system is, everyone has seen the Ten Commandments. Everyone has their opinion. I haven't heard anything negative about it. I'm pretty sure there are people who don't like it. Because of and I'm talking Christians, they probably don't like it because it's inaccurate in a lot of ways, and it is. And that I only have 2 gripes about the movie, and they're kind of big, but there's only 2. I guess I'll get those out the way now. My biggest gripes is, of course, the inaccuracies. One of the biggest ones would be Pharaoh or Ramesses, who at the end of the Ten Commandments, the movie that is, he lives. He survives. He goes back to his kingdom, sit next to Nefertiti, and there you have it. In the Bible, he dies with his soldiers at the Red Sea. They all drown. There was something else. It just popped out of my mind. But there are a few inaccuracies. But the reason for that, and the reason it has inaccuracies, is not really based on the book of Exodus from the Bible. This movie is based on a novel, a 1949 novel, Prince of Egypt, by Doris Clark Wilson, and a 1859 novel entitled Pillar of Fire by J.H. Ingram, and a 1937 novel On Eagle's Wings by A.E. Sutherland, along with the book of Exodus from the Bible. So it's more based on books than actual book. If you get what I'm saying, it's based on those novels. And when you see it from that perspective, you can kind of, brush through the inaccuracies because it's not really telling the story of Exodus. The other negative, and this is the biggest negative I have about the film, that quite honestly, yes, you can look back on it now and have this complaint, but I can honestly tell you all, I had this complaint when I was younger. I had this complaint when I first saw it when I was, maybe 7 or 8 years old. First time I ever watched it. And that the movie is whitewashed. This movie is the whitest Egyptian movie I've ever seen. I've never seen so many white people in my life in an Egyptian film. This was just a Middle Eastern film. I mean, whitewashed entirely, bro. They did have, I think, a clan of black folks that they said was from Nigeria, I think, towards the end of the film. But that's the only time you saw black people in this movie. Now, I'm not saying black people need to, I'm talking Middle Eastern culture people, they should have been in this movie. I didn't. Now, granted, it was 1956. I completely understand it was different times back then. You weren't going to get movies like that back then. But it was just glaring to me when I watched it when I was younger, and even still now. It does bother me. Even though I like the cast. Love the cast. We're talking Charlton Heston here as Moses. Along with being the voice of God from the burning bush. That was Charlton Heston's voice. And Yul Brynner as Ramesses or Pharaoh. Bruh, look, as far as movie villains are concerned, this was one of the best movie villains in film. Now, honestly, just go back and watch this movie. His heart being hardened, and that's coming from the Bible, of course, but his heart, he really displayed the disdain and the hatred for Moses and the Hebrews. He even to the point you probably believe he probably was like that in real life. I don't know, but it was so seamless, man. He was so cold of a villain, and especially for a 50s film. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this was a sinister guy. To go back at Moses, I mean, the back and forth between Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner was great, man. It was like watching a tennis match. It was great. I loved the dynamic of these two characters, how they were basically adopted brothers, you know, now sworn enemies, and the switch and the the disdain that was there. It was pitch perfect. Absolutely loved it. The set design, the scale of this movie, the set design just looks like they literally just they were there. It looks like they were there. Now, it was shot in Egypt. It was shot on Mount Sinai. It actually was there. They actually filmed the film there. And so I guess that helped it. You felt the atmosphere. You really felt it watching this film, and it made it more authentic. And it just was beautifully shot. It looks so it rivals films to this day. It rivals some of these big budget action, sci-fi, special effects driven films. It just looked marvelous. And it's not the only film that looked like that from that era, but this one was like the most groundbreaking, sweeping epic that, quite honestly, I've seen from that era. You know, not to say it was the greatest movie from that era, but it was just, y'all get what I'm trying to say. But it was beautifully shot, man. I mean, the scale. I can't speak too much more highly on the scale. You know, it was all the extras they used. I want to say, I had the number and I lost the number, but they had thousands of extras. They, like I said, this is before CGI. They couldn't just, digitally make people in the background walking in the background. No, they actually had to have extras performing these tasks and things of that nature. So that's what made it even more authentic. And speaking of CGI, this film, it was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. It only won 1. And that was for Best Visual Effects. This film, even though it's almost 80 years old, it probably has better special effects than movies that were released in 2022. I'll tell you this much. The special effects in the 10 Commandments were better than the special effects in Morbius that came out last week. And if you've seen Morbius, I'll fight you on it all day. We could debate that till our faces turn blue, which would be impossible for me. But I will fight you to the death on that one. The special effects was so groundbreaking and amazing. I immediately, when I saw this, once again, about 7, 8 years old for the first time and really understood movies, I asked my dad, I'm like, Pop, how did they do this? The Red Sea. How did they part the Red Sea in this movie? And he always told me. Because I always asked him. Because I was always amazed. Still, to this day, I'm amazed. He said they use mirrors. And I never understood it. I was like, what that mean? How did they use a mirror? I mean, I guess pop. And I always wondered, little side note, I always wondered how this man knew this. And how dad knew all this information. This before internet and Google. So I'm wondering how he knows the inner workings of film. Because not just this film. That man knew he was a walking IMDb page. You know, he knew everything about every actor, how they were cast, why they got cast, what happened on set, everything. I guess that's where my infatuation with film and behind the scenes and all that stuff, that's where it come from, him. And so that's why I never understood how he knew that. But anyways, he ended up being right. Because I looked it up, and I mean, I looked it up forever. I'm trying to find out how did they pull this off. Well, peek behind the curtain. This is how they pulled it off. They built a giant pool on a sound stage, and they poured water into the pool. And they filmed it from a certain angle. But what they did was they filmed it in reverse. So instead of filming it where the water's going in, it looked like the water was coming out. And think about this, people. It was 1956. Well, 55 when they made the movie. And this was the mind of Cecil B. DeMille at the time, how he was going to pull it off. And he pulled it off seamlessly. And it still looks top notch to this day. Of course, now, today, if they made this movie today, they're going to use computer generated images. But at that time, it was something to be admired. And it still is. It still holds up. All the visual effects. Another jaw-dropping effect that still resonates in me is when the water turned to blood. And, you know, it's easy to pour red dye into the river or whatever, the lakes and all this other stuff. That's pretty easy. You can pull that off. I can pull that off, you know, filming in my bathroom. But the shot that really got me was when Ramses was holding this pot full of water, and he was talking to his god. Forgot the name of his god, but he started pouring the water out. And as he's pouring out, water was coming out. And then all of a sudden, red liquid came out. And I'm like, how? It blew my mind. Because it was all in one shot. It wasn't like they cut away to Charlton Heston reaction and then cut back and he's holding the pot and now it's red. No, it was all in one shot. It was water pouring out. And then it turned red. There was nothing hooked up to the bottom of it. There was no rigs or, you know, nothing like that. And it wasn't colorized in post-production. This was actual red liquid pouring out. And it just blew my mind. Yes, it won for best visual effects. And it should win every year. Because I haven't seen nothing that topped that. It was amazing. The visual effects are amazing in this film. I stated before, they actually went on location in Egypt on Mount Sinai and the Sinai Peninsula to film this film to get a very artistic feel for it, and it paid off. In 1957, the film was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. But as I said, it won only 1 for Best Visual Effects. As far as its box office is concerned, it is one of the most financially successful films ever made, grossing approximately $122.7 million at the box office during its initial release. It was the most successful film of 1956 and the second highest grossing film of the decade. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, in terms of in terms of theatrical exhibition, it is the eighth highest, most successful film of all time. That's when you factor in adjustment for inflation. So if you take that 100, and I'm talking, when I said it made $122.7 million, that's not an adjustment. That's what it made in 1956. So if you inflate that to 2022 numbers, it made well over $1 billion. This movie is in the top 8 of all time. Top 8. And in the top 8, I think we have you have the Avengers films. You may have a oh man, I wish I should have pulled up the list, but I know Avengers Endgame, Titanic, a couple of the Avengers. I think Infinity War. Basically, whatever film crossed $1 billion is up there on that list, and this ranks at number 8. The film in 1999 was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for its cultural historical significance. In June of 2008, the American Film Institute revealed its 10 top 10, the best 10 films in 10 American film genres. After polling over 1,500 people from the creative community, the film was listed as the 10th best film in the epic genre. As we all know, network television has been airing the film in prime time over Passover and Easter season every year since 1973. And Passover is probably the reason why I said it was associated with Easter, but the Passover, because the Passover took place in this movie. If you watched the movie, which I'm pretty sure a majority of you have, you know what the Passover is. So, then yeah, it did take place in this film, and that's why I wanted to clear that up. But yeah, this was one of the best biblical films I've ever seen. They have a lot. They have a lot of biblical movies, but this one here really knocks it out the park. As I said before, despite its inaccuracies, despite the fact that it was whitewashed, I still enjoyed the film, and it still is a classic, and it still is untouched as far as epic feel for me. And so my grade for the 1956 epic, The Ten Commandments, it gets an A. It gets a A. Everybody, I hope everybody enjoys their Easter weekend. For all my Catholic brothers and sisters, I celebrate y'all coming off of Lent. Now y'all can eat your meat. I know everybody that gave up on meat, and some people gave up on cigarettes. They probably gonna go get their cartons now. They gave up so much during Lent. So congratulations on that. But I want to ask a question. Are you going to have an Easter egg hunt? If you have children, are y'all going to have an Easter egg hunt? Or are you going to go find an Easter egg hunt? I'm really intrigued by this Easter egg thing, if you can't tell. This Easter egg thing is really bothering me. Or the Easter egg hunt. I really, really, really want to know why it's not so publicized. At least around my neck of the woods. Maybe somewhere else. Maybe where y'all live at, or whoever. Y'all hear about it a lot. Man, y'all lucky. Just count y'all blessings, because around here there aren't any. And I say all that even if they announce one today or tomorrow, I'm not going, but I was just curious. I mean, these kids need something to do. That's my main thing. These kids need something to do, man. They don't have the same benefits that I had when I was younger. Stuff like that. It was a lasting memories. Look at me. I'm still remembering the stuff. I'm in my 40s. I learned a lot from all that stuff. So I need something for these kids to do instead of breaking into houses and carjackings and stuff like that. But in any event, everyone, if you want to contact the show, don't forget you can email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look us up on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, wherever. Just look up KB Radio Network. If you're listening on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave those 5-star ratings. Don't forget to leave the reviews. You can follow the show on Spotify. You can follow the show on iHeartRadio or wherever you are listening to the KB Radio Network, because KB Radio Network is available everywhere, even YouTube. So, everyone, man, it's been an honor, privilege, and joy. I'm going to get ready for this weekend. Probably going to barbecue. I haven't barbecued in forever, it feels like. So I'm probably going to barbecue this weekend. My kids are coming into town. They have their spring break from college, so they're coming back into town this week. So I'm going to celebrate by getting me some lean meat because I'm on a diet. I'm getting away from ground meat and all that. So I need to, now that I say that, man, I need to go to the store. Well, with that being said, everybody, let me get out of here. I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, everyone, happy Easter and be blessed.